what church should be. I don't want to be too presumptuous as to explain or describe or define what the church should be. I think what the church should be is in the realm of God's dream and His plan. I think it's an oversimplification to say that our manifestation of the church is the manifestation of God's dream, or if we could somehow get to God's manifestation of His dream by imitating it through the scriptures. I think it's only through organic relationship with the real, off the page Jesus Christ, that living God that He is, and to be connected to Him and with others through our conversations where He is in the center, where He is guiding us and leading us, and we're listening to His Spirit. We are obeying His word. We are begging Him in prayer to show us and guide us and to help us to obey and come into a fullness of Christ. That is the work only that God can do. It is not something that we can gain by our own effort. We must let all the things that we've already discussed inform what the church should be. Some would criticize this objection that only our hermeneutic should inform how the church should be. Now, we started off with the foundation of discipleship. That it starts with following Christ. We can't get caught in the 20th century trap of letting church come first and discipleship come later. Discipleship comes first, and then we can reflect upon our church manifestation. We have dumbed down the calling of Christ, who bids us come and die, like Bonhoeffer said, to a membership to this congregation. A church usually doesn't require as much as Jesus requires because it's not polite. And this is not to be left as a suggestion that there's nothing important about the manifestation of the church, but to emphasize following Christ, the daily walk with Him, the most vital aspect of our faith. When Jesus was teaching His disciples, He emphasized following Him more than He emphasized any kind of structure that would follow. Considering the structure that has arisen and has been called the church and equivocated with discipleship, we're going to look at a model. It's kind of shaped like a pyramid, because on the top of the pyramid, on the local church level, you have the pastors, the leaders, the elders, and below that you have the other people that work at the church. Maybe secondary ministers, associates, or youth ministers, or worship ministers. Down there at the bottom of the pyramid, there's a bunch of regular people. It's just the people that hold up the rest of the triangle, because they do it by attendance, being the people who sit there in the pew and listen. They're the volunteer pool. They're the people who give their money to support the whole triangle, and they kind of fall in the hierarchy, this false hierarchy that we have. But it's not false, because it's really real. It's our working authority that we use in our churches that is certainly not pointed to in biblical literature, but it's functional in the same way the Roman army was functional. It bleeds over into our training models. What does a regular person do when they really want to kick it up and be involved more? The first step is they kind of take a mentorship with the other leaders there. They kind of start hanging out and want to know more, and eventually the pastor or the elders will say, "Why don't you go to a Bible school or seminary, see what they could teach you there?" And so church leaders get trained in elsewhere places, and there is no local training. Leadership for local churches doesn't happen locally. Churches have not been training people to make disciples. There is no discipling structure. Instead of having a hierarchy like a pyramid, we should not have a pyramid. It should be more flat, that we all are in the same body. Something more pastoral. something more relational. Church issues. A retooling of the offices and duties of church officers, like preachers, pastors, should be mentors and disciplers. Elders are to be shepherds, not board of directors for the business of the church. Deacons are to be actually servants in the church. Oh, and there are to be actually deaconesses like there are in the Bible. From Straight Talk to Elders, Frank Viola. Your presence as ecclesiastical leaders that are put above God's people is the greater obstacle to God's eternal purpose than Satan's direct work. Because by your presence in the position that you're in, God's people are suppressed, oppressed, limited, and hindered. This is the truth. As far as power and security go, you inherited the mindset. You inherited this practice in which you are making your living off tithes. To change it, it takes a courageous, brave individual who comes to a point of desperation that says, I don't care what it costs, and I'm not going to be a part of something that hurts God's people. As long as you accept money from the Lord's people, you are a part of a separate class. They will always look up to you in an unhealthy way. These are hard words, but this is the truth. But has the institutional church been addressing the needs, doing the Lord's work in the community and in the world? Which small percentages is actually going to which structures? The building, the minister's pay, the improvements to the facility, foreign missions, feeding the poor, clothing the naked, visiting the imprisoned, like Matthew 25 says. Retooling our church buildings, maybe even sell them, turn into community centers. On unity, the other disciples as mentioned in Mark, and also the other sheep that Jesus mentioned in John 10. There are people that we don't know about. A retooling of church budgets away from buildings and preacher salaries towards the poor and other game investments. This is from LaGard Smith's Radical Restoration, a call for pure and simple Christianity. Jesus said of himself, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Maybe I'm overreaching here, but it does seem that from his birth in a borrowed manger to his burial in a borrowed tomb, Jesus poignantly avoided all permanence of place, as if to remind us how easy it is to become attached to externals and miss what should be going on inside. If church were thought of as a relationship instead of a place, might we not have an enhanced appreciation for why we come together each week? And we should do away with the phrase, go to church. There comes a time in your maturity in Christ when the feedings that you receive at a church meeting cannot possibly be enough to feed you. And most churches are geared for the beginner and for the novice of faith. And a lot of churches do not have a way to compensate for the medium to high grade mature. And most of those will have to find their own way and find their own path to maturing outside of the walls of the church. May 1st, and a lot of these videos have been done in the last month over our quarantine. And this is what I got, man. I would have liked to have been in a studio where professionals could cut things up and make things good and perfect and right. And mostly it's been personal information that, or general information that has been personalized and so much through the years, quoted heavily from other people, and it's just my offering. So I hope you've been blessed with it. And so far, I hadn't been measuring by views, so it's been a measurement of just getting my thoughts out there and being disciplined enough to wrap up the thoughts and put them in one place. And here they are.